What if, for the next 7 days, you prayed before touching your phone, not after checking just one thing? Before the notifications, before the news, before the feed decides how you're going to feel today. Here's the uncomfortable truth about our mornings. The alarm goes off, and before our feet touch the floor, our hand has already found the phone. Before we've said one word to God, we've heard from advertisers, strangers, headlines, the entire world. We sleep next to the thing. It's the last light we see at night, and the first voice we obey in the morning. And then we wonder why God feels distant by breakfast. So here's an honest question. What would actually change if, for 1 week, the first voice in your day was the voice of God? Not the whole morning, not an hour of silence, just first. That's the experiment. And I have to warn you, day 2 is going to expose you. Here's how it works. Let's start with the real issue, because this was never about screen time. Whoever gets the first word of your day is discipling you. That's not a figure of speech. The first minutes awake are the frame around the whole day. That's where your heart decides what counts as urgent, what counts as a threat, what counts as important. And your phone has an agenda ready for you: comparison, outrage, the urgency of things that have nothing to do with your life. You haven't even stood up, and you're already reacting. Now look at the alternative in Psalm 5003. O Lord, in the morning you hear my voice. In the morning I prepare a sacrifice for you and watch. Notice David's 2 moves. He speaks to God first, and then he watches, like a man who lays out an offering and keeps his eyes on the door, expecting an answer. It's the exact opposite of waking up reacting. It's waking up aimed. There's a boy in the Old Testament who had to learn this from zero. Samuel heard a voice in the night and didn't recognize it. He ran to the wrong bed 3 times, until Eli taught him a posture. Speak, Lord, for your servant hears. And when the voice came again, Samuel answered, Speak, for your servant hears. 1 Samuel chapter 3. The posture came. Before the voice. Hearing God starts with a decision made before he speaks. Your phone trains you in the opposite posture every single morning. Speak, world, for your servant is scrolling. Let me be clear about what's at stake, because it's not the device, it's formation. Romans 12,002. Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind. Notice that conformed is passive. It's what happens to you when you choose nothing. And the feed is a conforming machine. It studies what holds you and serves you more of it, every morning for free. Renewal, on the other hand, doesn't happen by accident. It needs deliberate input. Jesus, hungry in the wilderness, quoted Deuteronomy, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. Matthew 4004. Your soul eats breakfast too. The question was never, if you're going to feed it when you wake up. It's what? Proverbs 4023 gives the sentry's orders. Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flow the springs of life. The springs. Whatever enters upstream shows up downstream, in your mood, your words, your marriage, your work. And Jesus points at the gate itself. The eye is the lamp of the body. Matthew 6,022. Whatever you look at first becomes the light you see everything else by. And here's the sentence that stings, so I'll say it gently. Attention is worship in slow motion. Whatever gets your first and best attention, every single day, is functionally your God, no matter what your theology says on paper. That's why this fight is worth having. We're not talking about digital hygiene. We're talking about who gets to form you. Now the experiment itself. 3 rules, very concrete. Rule 1. The decision is made the night before. The phone sleeps outside the bedroom, or, if it's your alarm, across the room, face down, on Do Not Disturb. Better yet, a $10 alarm clock, the cheapest discipleship money can buy. Don't negotiate with yourself at 6 a.m. Decide at 10 p.m. Rule 2. When you wake up, before any screen, pray. And the bar is deliberately low, 5 minutes. This week, order matters more than length. A simple script. 3 moves. And notice it's the same shape as the prayer Jesus himself taught. In the Lord's Prayer, in Matthew 6, the order is exactly this: first the Father and the kingdom. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come. And only then the requests, give us this day our daily bread. Even in the model prayer, God comes before the needs. So, thank Him, His mercies are new every morning, great is your faithfulness. Lamentations. Chapter 3. Greet the new mercies before you greet the old anxieties. Hear Him, pray. Psalm 143 Thursday 8. Let me hear in the morning of your steadfast love, make me know the way I should go. A morning prayer already written, ready to be borrowed. If you have more in the tank, read 1 psalm. But that's extra credit, not the assignment. And hand it over. Name the items of the day, the meeting, the bill, the conversation, and place them in his hands. Then, and only then, phone. Rule 3. The phone is not banned. It just waits its turn. This is a 7-day experiment in order, not a monastery. And if you've already taken our 30-day challenge, this is the same front door, sized down to 1 week. Let's be honest about the first 2 days. Day 1, in the morning, is almost easy. You're motivated, the plan is fresh. Day 2 is the ambush. The alarm goes off and your hand moves on its own. Because that's what it is. A reflex, built over years, thousands of identical mornings. You will grab the phone without even noticing. You grabbed it. And think about what that motion actually is. Before you've spoken to your father, you've opened your bedroom door to every stranger, every salesman, and every shouting match on the internet. Nobody would do that with their front door. We do it with our minds, every morning. And you'll feel that phantom urgency. What if something happened? So run the test during the week. Count how many mornings there was actually something that couldn't wait 1 hour. Almost every notification could have waited an hour. Most of them could have waited forever. You are not as needed as your anxiety says you are. And that's good news, not an insult. Now, the most important part of this section, you will fail on some morning. You'll catch yourself 10 minutes deep in the feed before you remember the experiment. In that moment, don't quit. And don't condemn yourself. Put the phone down mid-scroll and pray right there. The experiment isn't broken. Restarting in the middle of the morning is also putting God first, because this was never about perfection. It's about direction. Around day 3, the problem changes its name. It's not the reflex anymore. It's the silence. Without the injection of stimulation, the morning feels empty. Stay with that feeling for a second, because it's revealing. The silence was always there. The noise was just hiding it from you. And that silence is exactly where God tends to work. Elijah learned this on a mountain in 1 Kings 19. A wind passed by strong enough to break rocks, but the Lord was not in the wind. Then an earthquake. He was not in the earthquake. Then a fire. He was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. God can shout, but most of the time He doesn't. And if your life has no quiet place in it, guess which voice goes unheard? David gives his own soul a command in Psalm 62:5. For God alone, O my soul, wait in silence, for my hope is from Him. He orders his soul to wait in silence, because the soul, left to itself, won't. So, on days 3 and 4, add 1 step, pray your 5 minutes, and then stay 1 more minute. Just 1. In silence, before you get up. It will be uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is not the same as wrong. Sometimes it's the feeling of a new muscle. Then, in the last stretch of the week, 4 things start to change. First, you begin to enter the feed as a different person. Same headlines, same alerts. But now they arrive at a heart that was anchored before the door opened. Psalm 142 describes that man, thousands of years before push notifications. He is not afraid of bad news. His heart is firm, trusting in the Lord. The bad news still exists. It just stops governing you. Second, the appetite grows. The 5 minutes start to feel short. The psalmist knew that stage. I rise before dawn and cry for help. I hope in your words. Psalm 119,047. He beat his own alarm because expectation pulled him out of bed. Nobody is demanding that from you, but it's good to know where this road points. Third, presence. You notice you're more whole at breakfast with your kids in the first hour of work because your day started with the only voice that isn't trying to sell you anything. And the fourth, quieter than the others, prayer stops being an emergency number. When God gets the first word every day, you stop treating him like the contact you only call when everything is on fire, and you start treating him like the Father you actually live with. Now, the honest report, as always, 7 days will not fix your life. The problems are still there at 7 a.m. But the order of the voices changes the weight of the voices, and that is exactly the difference between starting the day reacting and starting the day anchored. Before we close, 3 honest clarifications, because this channel doesn't sell shortcuts. First, this is not phone hating. The phone is a tool, not a god. The problem was never the device, it's the throne. Missionaries preach through that screen. You might read your Bible on it. But let's be practical. If the word lives on the same screen as the feed, temptation is 1 thumb swipe away. This week, consider paper. A physical Bible next to the bed solves the problem before it exists. And if your phone has to be your alarm because of work, airplane mode the night before, and it only comes off after the prayer, 90% solved. Second, this is not legalism. There is no verse that says, "Thou shalt not open the app before prayer." This is wisdom territory, not a commandment. A free choice to order the voices, not a new law to measure other people with. If you miss a morning, there is no condemnation, there's grace, and there's the next morning. Third, this is not a magic formula. 7 days of praying before the screen does not put God in your debt for a better week. God is not a vending machine that swallows discipline and dispenses blessing. What this experiment does is something else. It puts you, every morning, in the place where formation happens, in front of the voice that tells you the truth first. So, the whole experiment fits in 1 sentence. For 7 days, God speaks first. The night before the phone goes out of reach. When you wake up, thank him, hear him, hand it over. 5 minutes. Then the day. Do this right now. Write day 1 in the comments. That's the commitment of this video. In my morning, God speaks first. There's something powerful about writing that down, where you'll come back and read it. And if you know someone whose mornings are drowning, the person who answers messages before their eyes are fully open, send them this video. Day 1 is easier with 2. And remember the promise built into Psalm 5. O Lord, in the morning you hear my voice. He hears. At dawn, before coffee, before you're even functional. He is already listening. The question was never whether God will hear your voice. The question is whether he gets your first word or your leftovers. 7 days. First,